How we react to the recent attacks on our rights and the Constitution is really rather important. So we'll discuss this next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Well, hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study. That's right. This is where we read and study the Constitution. It's where we teach the rising generation to be free. Tonight's live stream is going to be a little different. I'm not doing a story or so much in the news, but I want to have a discussion about how we should react to these things. So before I get started, I want to remind everybody, leave your comments and questions in the comment to the video. We should have time. I will try to answer any questions that come up while this is live in the video. As always, you can head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com, and find out everything that we're doing. You can find, by the way, if you're worried about red flag laws, which are in the news a lot lately, there's an article in there and a video about that. You can find out where I'm speaking. I've been asked to do a lot more engagement, so if you want to see if I'm going to be in your area, check the events page. If you would like me to come speak in your area, request a speaker. As always, I want to thank everybody who helps spread the word, spread the news about this, help support the work that I'm doing. If you want to help, first thing you can do is share these videos and the other content. Let other people know what is going on. So as I said, a little different today, and I'm hoping for a lot of interaction, a lot of feedback, because as sure as the sun rises in the east, our rights are under attack again. And we're back to it. It's a common saw. Somebody does something stupid. There's a mass murder. It gets sensationalized. And before you can say, Bob's your uncle, voila, everybody's out there with a different plan to infringe on the rights of innocent Americans. And it's important, and we need to learn to deal with it. And I think if we take a little time and kind of examine a couple things that I've spent some time thinking about, maybe we'll have a better chance of protecting our rights rather than have to fight to get them back. So let's start from there. First thing I want you to go through is, as I look at people who react this way, again, what I'm talking about is there is some event, and before the bodies are cold, there are people calling for different infringements. And again, it's focused on firearms. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But this really could be for just about anything. Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. This could just as easily be used to your right of free speech, to your right of freedom of association, to peaceably assemble, your right to be safe in your home from unreasonable search and seizures. All it takes is some idiot doing something for people who have a bent to do this, to want to infringe on our rights. So it's really best we stop them at the beginning. And as I observe the people who are making these claims and are calling for our rights and are looking to punish the innocent, I really think they break down into three general types. These aren't comprehensive, but I find three general types. And the first type is the emotional. They've either been impacted directly or indirectly by the event, or whatever event it is has so frightened them. They're so afraid that this might happen to them that they focus on that. A lot of this comes from the hype of the media. People who are nowhere near El Paso, Texas, or Dayton, Ohio, are now afraid that this might happen in their backyard because of the sensationalization. Because these people are turned into celebrities. These events are turned into headlines, and they're not put into context. See, these people that are reacting, they're not really in a position to react rationally or even to listen to a rational argument. But they desperately want someone to do something. And you're going to hear that phrase repeated frequently. We've got to do something. But what they don't do is consider if the something will actually make things better or make things worse. Now, how do we engage with people like this? Well, the problem is rational arguments rarely work because their position is not based on reason. They didn't sit down and rationally evaluate the situation and decide they're really in danger, so a rational argument doesn't really work. Their position is based in large part on fear. And we must be aware of that, and we really should approach them accordingly. Because if we try to give a rational argument to someone who's who's locked in this emotional fear, all we're going to do is turn them off. They're not going to listen to us. So what should we do? Well, the first thing we should do is we should mourn with them. If they are directly or indirectly impacted, if they've lost a loved one or a friend, we should mourn with them. We should let them know we recognize how they feel. We may even understand how they feel. We really shouldn't at that point try to change their minds about what happened. Don't try to convince them that what they're feeling is wrong, because it bounces off. It doesn't work. It only causes them to really dig in their heels and oppose any changes more. It makes them cry to do something even louder. What you really want to do is let them know that you too want to do something about these mass murders or whatever the tragedy is. We're picking on mass murders today. But let them know you also want to do something about them. But that you want to make sure that what we do not only makes people feel safer, but actually makes them be safer. Listen, discuss their ideas. Repeat what they're saying back to them in your own words. Tell them you understand what their ideas are, to show that you've listened and that you understand. See, the goal here should not be to change their minds, but to calm them down, to gain their trust. We've seen it in the movies. Somebody is hysterical and the leading actor smacks them on the face to break them out of it. Well, it doesn't really work that way. What really works best is helping them understand, yes, you understand. Yes, you have a similar end goal, that of stopping or preventing future mass murders. You just disagree maybe on the tactic. You want to stop them, and you understand they're saying. Because what we're really trying to do is move them from being an emotional reactor to what's called a hoplophobe. Now, what is a hoplophobe? Well, a hoplophobe is our next category. There are certain people who generally hate and fear guns. It's called hoplophobia. I forget where I picked that up from, but they're afraid of them. To them, guns are the boogeyman. You talk about having a gun in your house, it's like a little kid who thinks there are monsters under their bed. It's not rational. It's not logical. They're afraid of them. They don't understand guns. See, most of what they know, they've gotten from the movies and from the media. And it's just plain wrong. They figure some guy with a 6-shooter is going to can shoot, and the person they shoot is going to fly backwards because that's what they've seen. They've seen these guns that just shoot forever and ever and ever, and all of that is breeding their fear. See, they too want to do something, but their lack of knowledge often leads to foolish and even dangerous suggestions. See, it's not that they don't want, they want to do something. They desperately want to do something, but their misunderstanding leads them in the wrong direction. Of course, when that's reinforced by a media that reinforces hoplophobia, reinforces the fear of guns, reinforces the demonization of a tool, reinforces the myths of what guns do and don't do, it leads them farther and farther into adopting these suggestions and leading them to make decisions not only are dangerous, but actually take a problem and make it worse. So how do you deal with a hoplophobe? Well, I have 2 suggestions. And again, I've tried these in the past. The first one I've really kind of had only limited success with because It starts out with a challenge to their closely held beliefs that guns are bad. I've tried this even with a couple politicians, and I haven't gotten them to bite yet. See, many of these people have an extreme misunderstanding of firearms and how they work. And this is evidenced by what they say. So what I try to do is give them physical proof of their misunderstanding without contradicting them. And this is kind of important. I don't tell them they're wrong. I show them the facts and help them see that they're wrong. Now, this works best with people who fear assault weapons. And usually they don't understand them. So what I like to do, and I've tried this, I've even invited state representatives back when I lived in New York. I would take them I would invite them to come to the range, and I would give them a demonstration. So I would take two guns, and I'd lay them side by side. Now, one of these guns had a simple standard plastic stock. The kind, used to be wood stocks. Now they're more synthetic because they're lighter and cheaper. Now, the other one had more tactical furniture, right? It had the barrel shroud and the collapsible stock, and it was the scary black rifle that everybody vilifies. I then lay these out, and I prove them they're unloaded, they are safe, and I lay them out, and then I ask the hoplophobe, which is the assault weapon? Now, almost universally, they will pick the tactical rifle, the one with the scary black furniture on it. See, then I show them that these are both 22 long rifle semi-automatic firearms. In fact, I even had one guy said, "Here, let me show you. Shoot both of them." They shoot the same bullets at the same rate. If you can get them to shoot, it really works because it changes their mindset to this gun and this gun are the same gun. They just have a different paint job. They have different stuff on them. Now, sometimes this can, to a true hoplophobe, can basically say, I'm terrified of both guns now, but we have to move in steps. Now, sometimes what I'll do, if I can't really take them to a range and bring out guns, what I'll do is I'll take a 223 and a 308 cartridge, or sometimes if I have them, just the bullets, and I place them side by side on the table. And I ask them, which is used in an assault weapon? Now, they'll often pick the 308 because it's a bigger cartridge, right? It's wider, it's taller, it's got to be the scary assault weapon ammunition, right? See, the goal here is to let them observe that their assumptions are wrong. See, then I tell them, or better yet, show them that it's actually the smaller cartridge that is used in that feared AR-15. The larger one is the one that was used in their grandpa's deer rifle. See, again, the goal is to help them discover that all they've been taught about guns isn't true. That they have some misinformation, that what we really are trying to do is help them make better decisions by understanding what it is they're talking about when they're talking about these firearms. See, hopefully that can lead to a more reasonable, rational discussion about firearms and their use. Now, the one technique that I have tried that I've had a lot of success with, at least with honest hoplophobes, is I take them shooting. Now, first, I've done this several times with many different ages. I explain to them in forceful detail that this will be a safe experience, that my primary goal will be for them to safely operate a weapon. My goal is to make sure they are safe. I repeat safe and safety as often as I can. The goal is to keep everyone safe. I give them a safety briefing. I include the 4 universal gun safety rules. I keep reinforcing the idea that these rules are universally adopted to maintain safety when handling any firearm, and that the vast majority of firearms owners try to obey these rules because they don't want to hurt anybody. I tell them that if I'm short with them on the range, I'm not being rude. I'm trying to ensure their safety and the safety of others. It's important that they feel that this is going to be a safe, if not comfortable, it's going to be a safe encounter. They're not in danger. Now, once I have them through the safety, I then take a training gun. I happen to prefer a laser pistol. And I have them work on grip and stance and what's going to happen when we go to the range. I want them to get comfortable holding a weapon. I'm trying to dispel some of their fears by getting them used to a gun that shoots only lasers. And by the way, blue guns work as well, but I prefer getting them used to actually pulling a trigger and focusing on doing that well. See, I'm giving them a task to do. Once they get the grip and the stance, now can they operate the trigger? And now the focus comes off of I'm operating a firearm to I'm trying to get this trigger pull right. Then I take them shooting. Now, if possible, I try not to take them to a range. See, ranges rarely allow me to use a type of reactive targets that work really, really well with new shooters. And the noise of other people firing can often be disturbing and kind of bring fear back into this person. Now, as I said, I like reactive targets. Pumpkins, watermelons, they work really well. But anything that quote unquote explodes when you hit it, it works fine. I've even taken just full bottles of water, take a water jug or a milk jug, and fill it full of water, put a cap on it, stick it out there. That's what you're going to shoot. Because when it goes, they get a smile. Now, the other thing is I have them shoot a .22 long rifle. It's relatively quiet. It's very low recoil. It's very easy to handle a gun. They're not going to be startled and scared by it. See, that's the trick. They are intimidated until they pull the trigger and that first shot goes off. I've never seen anybody go from I'm afraid of what's going to happen and still be afraid after they've pulled that trigger. They realize, hey, it's not as bad as I thought. It's not going to go kerblang and, I'm going to knock trees down. It's a very short, simple, easy thing to do. I keep the targets close. I want to make sure that they actually can hit the target. I use a laser on mine to make it even easier for them to hit the target, because what I'm trying to do is have them have a good experience. I want them to realize it is not scary. It is not. It's not dangerous. And there's nothing like the look on their face when that pumpkin or watermelon goes boom. Every time it happens, there's a smile on their face. Now, I'm also reminding them to relax. You'd be surprised how many people stop breathing the moment I say, okay, the weapon is loaded. As we discussed, pick it up and put the laser on target. I have to remind them to breathe. I support them as they take those first few tentative shots as they're kind of getting over the nerves of the experience. See, my goal here is to demystify the gun. Now, later, we can have a rational discussion with them about guns and gun control. And it's amazing what happens when someone says, oh, the 30-round magazines are too dangerous. 10 rounds is all you need, because 30 rounds you can do too much damage. Well, if you spent any time with them, I can take that training pistol out and go, here, watch, click, click, click. How much time did I spend doing that? See, now, not everyone's going to become a gun enthusiast. That's not actually my goal. Some people may never shoot again. But I've yet to find anybody walk away from this type of first exposure more fearful than when they started. In fact, more often than not, the next question I'm asked is, when can we do it again? And that's the first step on inoculating people to this fear of a firearm. Now, the third type, and probably the most detestable of all, I call the political opportunist. See, they see these events as nothing more than an opportunity to shill for votes. They don't care about fixing the problems. They just want to be seen as doing something. Why? because that's what the other two groups are calling for. The emotional says we have to do something. The hoplophobe says we have to do something. The political opportunist stands up and says, hey, I'll do something. And they never bother to make sure that what they're doing is right. They use these events either to show that they're going to do something or that their opponent is evil for opposing their plans. You're against background checks, universal background checks. You want people to die. Oh, you're against red flag laws. You want people to die. All they're doing is dancing in the blood of these poor victims, dancing on the hearts and the emotions of the people that have been impacted, all with the hope of swinging a few votes. I have absolutely no compassion for them. So how do we engage with them? We shame them. That's what I do. Well, I have compassion on the first two groups. I do feel for those who have are impacted by these, whether it's rational or not. The political opportunist, no compassion at all. I will point out their hypocrisy every possible opportunity. Not just their contradictions on guns, but on rights and the Constitution. I remind them that they swore or affirmed an oath to support the Constitution. How can they then go and subvert it? And if they'll subvert it for this, what's to prevent them from subverting it for something else in the future? Their oath includes protecting everyone's rights, not just the rights of the gun grabbers or the people writing big fat checks to their political action committees. See, if they use armed security, even better. I point out just how hypocritical it is. Ask them if they require if they require protection, if they're willing to pay for armed protection, why can't the everyday citizen have their own armed protection? See, I also asked them if they will require law enforcement and other government officials to follow the same rules they wish to push on us. See, they won't. Because what they want is they want their aristocracy. They want to say, I'm important, so I get to have armed security. You're a plebe. You're a serf. You don't get it. You don't need it. We've got police that'll take care of you. I show how they're using the deaths of innocent people purely for political gains. I show how little they care about the deaths of people in inner cities while they aggrandize those in the suburbs. We spent a week and a half, close on 2 weeks, talking about the death of 30 to 34 people in 2 cities over a weekend. And I agree, it's a tragedy. It's terrible what has happened. But if my numbers are right, last weekend in Chicago, 42 people were shot. I think 42 people died in gun homicides in Chicago. Where's the outcry for protecting them? Oh no. See, they don't matter as much because whether it's because of their political power, whether it's because of their voting history, or whether it's just not being not being made into a celebrity event by the media. For whatever reason, they don't, they don't really care. Excuse me. I show them with facts, preferably government facts, that what they're trying to do is actually making things worse. That I show them how gun-free zones are the places most likely for mass murderers to use their guns. You remember was Aurora shooting in the movie theater? If memory serves, the killer drove by 3 or 4 movie theaters. And I believe even theaters that were playing the Batman movie. See, he wanted a place where there were no guns. I show them how they're turning mass murders into instant celebrities. That's encouraging more. If you take a disturbed person, a disturbed young man who thinks they are, and let's face it, these are almost entirely young white men. If you take someone who's already disturbed, who already thinks that they are of little or no value, that they are the dregs of society, that they're never going to amount to anything, and you give them the opportunity to make a name for themselves, to be remembered, you've given them a reason to go out. And it's not that it's their fault, right? It's still the fault of the murderer, but you're actually encouraging them rather than dissuading them. I point out how mass murder has increased, and it's correlated quite well with restrictions on owning firearms since starting roughly the 1990s. I think there was like one or two in Reagan and H.W. Bush's presidency. I believe the number is, it was 8 in Clinton, 12 in W. Bush's, and 24 or 30 in Obama's. The more we restrict guns, we're seeing more of these. But the other thing we want to do is we want to give them solutions that will actually make things better. Now, some of which I'm going to cover in just a couple minutes. But there's a really important point to understand here. See, your audience is not the political opportunist you're talking to. They have absolutely no reason, all right, maybe not absolutely no. If they're driven by political opportunity, they're not worried about what is going to work or not work. They don't care. They care about swaying votes. To them, it's advantageous to hype these, to build up the fear if they promise to fix the problem, or if they can vilify their opponent for not doing what they recommend. Now, you can make all the points you want with them. They're not going to bite. But you can make a lot of points with the people that are observing you, the people that are watching you interact with the political opportunist, and even with the hoplophobe and the emotional, by being calm, rational, factual, showing that you care, showing that you want to make things better, and showing that you're unwilling to accept any answer just because it's an answer. You know, if you're in a car speeding towards a cliff, you have to do something. Now, you can step on the gas or you can step on the brake. Now, if you're emotional, you just step on something and you step on the gas, you've made things worse. We want to make sure that we're helping people to step on the brake. That's the goal with the political opportunist. It's not to change their mind, because it's darn near impossible. But to be surprised how many people will see your interaction online, will hear or watch your interaction with the politician or the candidate, and may come and follow up with you because you're not the guy screaming, "We've got to do something." You're not the teenage kid yelling and screaming about how America is terrible, "We've got to do this." You get to, you can now have people start paying a little more attention to maybe your answers have some merit. Maybe I can have a rational discussion with them. And that's really the goal of all three of these, is to get people to move to a rational discussion. Now let's see, we're about half hour in, perfect. Because the next step, I think, is very important. We've dealt with how do we deal with the people trying to take our rights. And again, we've been focusing on our Second Amendment rights, although the Fourth, Fifth, and 14th Amendment are really also under attack with these red flag laws. But what can we do? If we want to have a solution, if we have to do something, what should we do? Well, the first thing we should do is learn to defend ourselves. Now, I don't care if you want to use firearms, knives, or your bare hands. We need to learn to stop being dependent on a government to protect you. If you're waiting for the government to protect you, you are a subject of the government. If you're willing to protect yourself, you're now a citizen. So we need to stop being serfs. We need to stop waiting around for our Lord to take care of our safety. And that means we need to stop. We need to demand that those who say, no, 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 you just sit there quietly and you wait for us to take care of you. We need to demand, no. We need to stand up and say, I have a right to defend myself, and I have a right to defend myself with whatever tools are necessary. And if you're going to say, I have to wait for you, I have to wait with someone with a badge to show up, or someone with a uniform, or just someone who gets a paycheck from a government, we need to recognize that's turning us into serfs, into subjects of the government, subject of a king or a lord that will tell you what you can and can't use to protect yourself, to ensure your own safety. Now, let's face it, the odds of you being in any life-threatening event with a firearm is extremely small. A mass murder, even smaller. But the consequences of such an interaction, of such something happening, is tremendous. If you survive, I mean, obviously, if you're dead, you're dead. But if you survive, your life will never be the same. So, would you rather cower in a corner waiting for the government to come to your rescue? Or would you rather be prepared to defend yourself and your family and let the government clean up the mess afterward? See, in this story, picture the stories we've heard about mass murders, whether it's El Paso, whether it's Aurora, whether it's Parkland, whether it's the Pulse nightclub, whether it's Dayton, wherever it is. Think of what happened. Would you rather be the hero in that story or the victim in that story? Because when evil comes, those are your choices. Either you're going to be the hero and stand up for your own safety, or you're going to be the victim and you're going to wait for someone to come save you. How many of you want to be the damsel in distress? See, if you want to be the hero, then you have to stop being a victim. And you do that by taking charge of your own safety. Now, you don't need to carry a gun to defend yourself. If you do so, I highly recommend you get training, not simply target practice, but self-defense training with the firearm. It is one thing to stand on a line and put holes in paper targets. It's quite another to work with people who know how to defend yourself with your hands, with a weapon, with a knife, with a gun, with anything around you. I know one expert, whenever he walks onto a plane, he asks for an unopened can of soda. Why, you may ask? Because in the confined space of an airplane, an unopened can of soda is a pretty effective projectile. You can, if someone starts acting up and your life is threatened, you can throw that at their head and make them duck, flinch, even to give them a good shot. And now you have the opportunity, again, to defend yourself. But that takes training. You don't do that by watching videos. You really, really, really need training. I've been to some. I want to go to more, but that's important. But it also brings you to the idea of being aware of your surroundings. It's amazing how many people live their lives completely oblivious to what's going on around them. And I'm simply talking about the humorous videos of people walking into things while they're playing with their iPhone. Being aware. I used to drive my daughter nuts. We would go to a restaurant and I would ask her, where are the exits? And it was like, I got the eye roll, the teenage eye roll. And it's like, no, where are the exits? And she'd point out the exits, and I go, you always forget the one in the kitchen. There's always a way out through the kitchen. Why? Because being in charge of your own safety means maybe my best move is to get out of the area. If I'm going to be responsible for my safety and that of my family, I should be aware of my surroundings, and I should be prepared to defend myself, and it's something we should take responsibility for, because otherwise we give that responsibility to a government and we become their subjects. Now, the second thing we need to do, and this is also important, is we need to learn to protect the rights of others. See, there will always be people who see things differently from you or me. You aren't always going to agree with me. I'm not always going to agree with you. There's always going to be somebody that we don't agree with. We need to train ourselves to automatically rise to the defense of the rights of others. The right of people to do things differently. See, by doing so, we set a standard that will eventually protect our rights as well. See, if we won't protect other people's rights, there'll be no one there to protect our rights when they're in danger. Now, if they want to be a victim, if they want to wait around for official government rescue, well, that's up to them. That doesn't mean that we have to. If they think guns are evil, that's their opinion, and we should defend their right to say so, and to stand up for their right to say, we don't like them, as well as our right to stand up and say, well, that's okay, they're wrong. I love, there was one gentleman, I heard a story of a gentleman who had a neighbor who didn't like the fact that he owned guns. He thought it was dangerous because he had guns. So he put a sign in his front yard that said, this property protected by Smith & Wesson, but my neighbor doesn't like guns, so I will respect his position and not use my guns to protect his property. Neighbor didn't think that was great. See, that's the important point. We need to recognize that people are going to have different ideas, but we need to learn to protect all of their rights. We have this natural human failing of thinking, not only thinking we're right, but effectively imposing our opinions on other people. Other people think guns are bad, so they don't want us to have them. We think guns are good. Do we turn around and say, no, you have to have them? Understanding rights means we're going to allow others to disagree as long as that disagreement doesn't adversely impact me. If they want to be serfs, let them. We're going to stand for our rights and for theirs, even if they don't want to stand for them themselves. See, what we want to remember, only about 1/3 of the colonists actually supported independence at first. 1/3 supported independence, 1/3 supported the crown, and 1/3 didn't care. It's not important that we get everybody on board or even a majority on board. We need to recognize that our rights are protected, and we need to get in the habit of protecting other people's rights as a mindset. So even if we don't change their minds, again, others will see, and hopefully they'll be encouraged to join us in protecting the rights of others. It's something that's lost in our society to our great detriment. Now, the third thing we should do, and I got to admit, I have a problem with this as well. It's human nature. We need to stop being afraid of being called names. How many of you remember, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me? Now, I know, words hurt. Nobody likes being called names. But we also need to remember that name calling is the last resort of the child on the playground who has no argument. Nothing you do will stop name callers from lying about you. Even if you agree with them, they'll probably still call you names. Right? But it's all they have left. The fact that they're resorting to calling everybody who disagrees with the red flag laws racist or homophobic or transphobic or xenophobic means they've got nothing else. They've got no argument. Now, sure, some may have bigger megaphones and nothing we say is going to change their mind. But if our audience are not the people that are yelling at us, but those that are watching us, which is more powerful? Calling people's names or intelligently delivering facts and data and working towards a solution that is a proven benefit, not one that's been proven to not work. Yes, it's frustrating. You have to say the same thing over and over and over and over again. And there's times when I want to look and say, I know you are, but what am I? That's just falling down to their level. But you see, if we're more worried about what people will say about you than protecting your rights, do you deserve either of them? Remember, Ben Franklin said, "Those who give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." Yeah, it's a mess. And we're going to get called names. And if we're going to protect our rights, we must place our rights above our name calling and be prepared to suffer the slings and arrows of children who have no other argument. Now, while I'm at it, there's a couple other people I want to make sure we deal with, and that is our representatives. See, we fall into this trap. Our representatives, those people we send to Washington and to the state capitals, they work for you, not the other way around. See, they want you to act like you work for them. Oh, no, we'll tell you what you can and can't do. They work for you, and we should never have allowed them to forget it, and we should never allow them to forget it ever, ever again. If they want to call you a white supremacist, remind them that their childishness shows they are unfit for office. If they claim you don't care about the children, remind them of the proven solutions you have brought. And if they would rather infringe on the rights of innocent Americans than deal with the actual problem, they are unfit for office. And if they claim you're just a shill for the NRA, ask them who's paying for all those anti-gun groups. And that ignoring the will of those they work for shows they are unfit for office. Then remind them that not only will you not vote for anyone who is unfit for office, but you will work hard to find someone who is, regardless of their political party. You want to scare a politician? Tell them you're going to get votes for the other guy, not just the primary, the other party. See, when you walk into their office, they should be more afraid of you than you are of them. Now, I want you to notice something. We've been going a little over 40 minutes here. None of my suggestions, none of my arguments so far have been based on the Constitution, which is pretty odd considering this is called the Constitution Study, and it's what I spend most of my time doing. And it's not that the Constitution is not important, but so many people don't know or don't understand what the Constitution actually says that argument gets quickly twisted and just dismissed. You know, if you tell somebody, oh, well, I have a Second Amendment right. Well, the Second Amendment's for the militia. No, it's not. Oh, yes, it is. That's what I've heard somebody say. Or I heard a great one today. Well, the Second Amendment is not an individual right. It's a community right. No, it's not. And the funny part was, well, the NRA didn't say that the Supreme Court didn't say that until Heller, until they were reminded, first of all, no, it actually was an individual right for 150 years until the Supreme Court changed their mind. And the one thing they never did was actually quote the Founding Fathers, that not only it's an individual right, but it's there to protect yourself. See, until we have a populace that is better schooled, better educated about the Constitution, my fear is purely constitutional arguments, they just fall apart because they don't know what it means. You know, when you tell somebody that a red flag law is a violation of their Fourth Amendment, all they're thinking is, but they promise that this will be used to keep crazy people from having guns. There's not a lot of meat there. That's why I focused on how do you deal with the people's fears? How do you deal with their arguments, and doing so in a way that leads us to we're protecting your rights. We're trying to protect their rights as much as we're trying to protect our rights. And that's what I think needs to be the focus as we're dealing with a very, very, very difficult time, because right now, even people who are supposedly conservative constitutionalists, pro-guns, are saying, yeah, but we want to infringe on your rights with red flag laws. Because what? Because they're hearing a lot of people saying this is the way to solve it. They're not being given the entire truth, would be my guess. I've actually taken the time to read a couple of these red flag laws. They are truly scary. And, it's the same scenario of, if they don't hear from people who can have a reasonable, rational argument and recognize that if you violate your oath of office, you are unfit for office, and we're going to work to find somebody who is, and then actually follow up and do it, they're going to listen to the people that are saying, yeah, here, we'll contribute money to your campaign, but we want you to push this law. And trust me, it's going to fix all the problems. We'll just ignore that little, yeah, maybe it's an infringement of your right. But if it saves just one life, you know what I never hear people say? If we infringe on the rights of just one person, that's too much. If we can't figure out a way to deal with the people in a society that have that wish to cause chaos and mayhem and murder without infringing on the rights of innocent Americans, the jig is up. This experiment in self-government is effectively over because the Constitution, if the Constitution doesn't matter anymore, if it could be set aside because people are scared, do we still have a constitutional republic anymore? So I'm looking here. I just see. So Brett says, are there any rights established in the Constitution that have not been infringed upon? If not, how can we work to fight the infringement of others and the vote to request of the same congressmen who have contributed to the infringement? Yeah. See, here's the problem, and it's actually. I'm trying to remember. Did I just write that article, or is it one that's I'm still? It hasn't been published yet. See, here's the problem. We are caught in this cycle because we have been told that you have a choice between the Democrat or the Republican. Yeah, maybe you can vote for the Green Party or the Libertarian Party, but that's just a wasted vote. You got to vote for the Democrat or the Republican. Yeah, there's a problem. That's not the way it's designed to work. So you've actually read the Constitution. That was it. I wrote an article about, it'll be coming out, I think next week or the week after, about California law and tax returns and primaries. And part of the problem is we keep falling into this. You've got to pick the lesser of two evils. As long as we keep picking the lesser of two evils, we're going to get evil. As long as we say we've got to pick the name from the list, from column A or column B, we're stuck with people in a corrupt system. The political party has corrupted the election process and the political process to the point where they can't be trusted. Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green Party, I don't care. Parties are a curse on this nation. George Washington, in his farewell address, basically predicted what we have today, that when one party comes into power, it's going to spend most of its time trying to punish the one that just left power. So the point is, forget the parties. If they infringe on if they violate their oath of office to support the Constitution, then they are unfit and we find somebody else. And the hardest part is, I know somebody who's running for office, and it's sad because they contacted me and said, Paul, please don't tag them in posts because they're afraid that something I say may be twisted and then attached to them simply because I tagged them in a post. To me, it's really pretty sad, but that's the where things are. We also have to recognize that until we not only choose who we're going to vote for based on their shown history of supporting the Constitution, but educating others about the Constitution and their rights and how they're being infringed, you're right, we're going to have very little impact. This is not going to be a quick fix. This is probably not going to be fixed in my lifetime. It might not get if it gets fixed, it might not be in my daughter's lifetime. But the point is, if we don't start fixing it, it's going to continue to get worse. I sent off a note to my state rep and my state senator asking about some Tennessee legislation. And I'm about yay far away from setting up a meeting because they aren't being as responsive to me as I would like. Now, I understand they're busy people and there's a lot going on, and I'm not saying they have to dance every time I call a tune. But when I'm asking my representatives what's coming up in legislation, I expect an answer. And if you're not going to give me an answer, I'll find somebody who is, somebody who will. And I don't care if the place loses its seniority, and I don't care if it goes to another party. I care, are you going to support your oath? Because if you support the Constitution, the vast majority of the other problems become less important because you're going to be more likely to be on the right side of the truth, of justice, of protecting rights. You know, I may disagree with you on some of the details, but if I have a choice between someone who's back to the car and the cliff, if I have someone who's a choice between someone who is saying, I'm going to stand on the gas to go over the cliff, and someone who says, well, I'm not really going to stand on the gas, but I'm going to turn the car a little bit. Not as far as you would like, but I'm going to turn it a little bit. I'll take that little bit and push them to turn a little bit more the next time. You know, yes, it is very frustrating to see elected officials ignoring the electorate, but we've taught them there's no cost to ignoring the electorate. One of the reasons I started the Constitution studies, one of the reasons I spend all this time doing what I do. It's one of the reasons why I'm setting up meetings. I'm trying to travel the country to help people learn and understand the importance of understanding the Constitution, because when they lie to you, you can call them on it and you can look at them and say, you're infringing on my rights. That is a violation of your oath. That is not what government is set up for. And if you won't do the job, I'll find somebody who will. And it's going to be ugly and it's going to be slow, but the alternative is either serfdom or civil war. And I'd rather work the slow, ugly process than have myself or my daughter fighting with guns because we wouldn't fight to keep our representatives under control. So, Brett, I understand your point, and I don't disagree with you. I think we have to really take a longer term view of this. I don't see any other questions popping in. I did get one thing popped up. Kim, you know who you are. You sent me a note that, again, I live here in Tennessee, and they are trying to get a group together. They're trying to educate people. They're going to do it, I guess, through some rallies and through some videos to educate people about how dangerous red flag laws actually are. As I said, I have a video and an article that goes into much more detail. But as much as people complain about a violation of the Second Amendment, red flag laws really open the door to, if you're a sci-fi buff, call it Minority Report. If you're more of a 70s movie buff, maybe Star Chamber. But the idea that your right to be secure in your papers, properties, and effects, to be to not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. And by the way, anybody that tells you that just because there's a warrant, there's due process, no. Due process means all parties involved get what they are owed, what they are due. That's the purpose. That's what's meant by due process. So you violate the due process rights. You violate the basic concept of innocent until proven guilty. And I have yet to see a red flag law, and I've looked at a few of them, I've yet to see a proposed red flag law that actually protects the rights of the people involved. And this is the point that really disturbs me, is if they can pass a law that says someone can drop a dime on their neighbor or their family member or an estranged spouse or whatever to come collect their firearms, how far are we from them dropping a dime about something you said? Like maybe, Paul used hate speech. And they come in and they shut down my YouTube and my Facebook, and they confiscate my computers and charge me with a hate crime because someone claimed I said something hateful. How long? How long before they say, well, we don't really need, we've issued a warrant. The fact that it isn't supported by oath or affirmation, that it isn't specific, doesn't really matter because we've got a law that says we can do it. If you go back and read the Declaration of Independence, two of the primary reasons listed, two of the primary complaints were bills of attainder and writs of assistance. Now, bill of attainder is basically a bill written specifically to impact a certain class of people. You have a bill written specifically to impact gun owners. How do I know this? Well, they aren't confiscating knives, are they? They aren't confiscating other possible dangerous. Do they come in and take your swords? Do they come in and take materials that could be used to make bombs? Do they take away your car? All of these have been used in mass murders in the recent history. Remember Times Square? They're going to come collect your pressure cookers because you can make them into bombs? No, they're targeting firearms. If they figure out they can target firearms, how long before they figure out they can target something else? And if you don't now no longer have due process rights, if the Constitution can be superseded by a federal or state law, and your due process rights no longer there, what rights matter at all? How long is it before they come up and say, you know what? Let me think of a good example. We're going to come search your home because, someone said you have raw milk. And we all know that raw milk is dangerous. You can get sick from that. So we're gonna come in here and do that. Or someone said, and this is not too far off because we see it today, someone said that you mistreat your children, so we're going to come in without any proof, without any probable cause, and we're going to take your children away because someone dropped a dime and said that you are abusing them. Maybe because you homeschool them. Maybe because you teach them differently than the schools. Maybe, I was working with a lady many years ago from Germany who was dumbfounded by the fact that my wife and I homeschooled my daughter because it's illegal in Germany. Because in Germany, they don't want the children taught anything but what the government approves. How long before that happens? How long before teaching your children something that is not government approved is a warrant for them to come take your children? See, these red flag laws, yes, they're gun laws, they're gun control, but they're really people control. And if they can do it for that one, how long before they can find something else to do it for? Look at our recent history. This is not outlandish. This is the way government has worked for 200 plus years. You keep moving the window, moving the window, moving the window. It's another move. And that's why I think if we, rather than shouting and screaming and waving the Constitution, again, Constitution's important, how we deal with them is important. And I think educating people rationally, reasonably, calmly, and again, going to our politicians and saying, if you're not going to fulfill your oath, you are unfit for office. I do not care. I don't care if the other party wins. I don't care if you're not going to send me the bribe of this boondoggle or that boondoggle or this bit of pork. I don't care. My rights are more valuable than the crumbs you drop on my plate. And that's time, folks. So I hope you found this. It was different. I hope it made you think. I hope maybe it made you think about how you are interacting with people you disagree with, how you're dealing with the people who have, again, they're afraid, or they're either afraid of guns, or they've been impacted by a shooting or other tragic death, and they're reacting emotionally. And I've seen it so many times. If you come at them trying to change their mind, they just dig in their heels. So I hope that made you think. If you've got more questions, if you didn't get to watch this live, you can watch the recording. Post comments. I will try to answer them as quickly as possible. Again, if you have other questions, head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com. Hopefully, if I'm going to be in your area, I hope you'll stop by. I hope you shake your hand, say hello, maybe take a picture. Most of all, though, I hope that you want to continue learning about the Constitution, and I hope that you will join me again the next time when we get together on the Constitution Study. Have a great night, everyone.